Okay, I'm here today with Justin Whitaker, who's a doctoral candidate in Buddhist studies at the Goldsmiths College, but also author of the popular blog American Buddhist Perspective. We're not in America today, I haven't gone that far to record a video, but in Bristol. And the first topic we're going to talk about was karma. In terms of it's a central concept. If people think of Buddhism, it's perhaps one of the things they've already heard of if they haven't studied it before. But in your experience of teaching and working with people in kind of Buddhist context, what are those common kind of misconceptions or sticking points when trying to work out what exactly karma means in a Buddhist setting?
I think the most common misconception about karma or karma is that there's an instant reciprocity, such that if one acts harms somebody, then somebody's going to harm them in return. So perhaps my own suffering right now, perhaps anything that's going on in my life is a direct consequence of actions in my past.
So seeing it as very kind of functionally causal, crudely causal.
Yeah, crudely and directly causal. So even something so simple as like a stomach ache, feeling a pain in my stomach and thinking, oh, what have I done in a past life, or what did I do maybe earlier in this life, which would cause that, rather than looking at more kind of basic physical causes.
So if we say that the kind of miseries that I go through each day, stomach ache and pain and people being mean to me, aren't the direct result of past misdeeds, and they might have causes like people are horrible to me because I'm horrible to them, or I've got a stomach ache because I ate too much again, then karma's ruled out as a cause for that, or at least put as only one of the causal web of factors. What does karma affect then? If it isn't karma that's doing that in that kind of crude way, what is karma doing?
Karma can be described as affecting or building one's character. I think that's one good way of looking at it.
So it's the process whereby you become who you've chosen to be? Does that sound?
Yeah, roughly. Karma is discussed is either wholesome or positive or skillful on the one hand, or unwholesome, unskillful, or negative on the other hand. So these are morally charged actions that you carry out in your day-to-day life, things that you contemplate and think about and kind of build your character around. So I would describe it as something like the actions and activities that build who you are as a person.
And does karma retain any sense, although not in a crude way, but any sense in which it is a causal factor as a result of my actions, that if I do go around being, if I go around being mean to people and being sarcastic and making students cry and things, yes, it'll make me into a more embittered and happy person over time, but will it have other effects? Will the karmic ripples, in a sense, in the way that we tend to think of karma, come back to kind of get me?
Oh yeah, of course. I mean, just in a very commonsensical way, in that if you are a terrible person, people are going to perceive that and people are going to treat you accordingly. Whereas if you're a good person and treat people with kindness and generosity, then in general, you're going to see a reciprocation of that. So it is going to kind of go out and come back.
And is there anything more to the Buddhist concept of karma than just a more enhanced way of describing something that we're already familiar with? Or is the Buddhist concept like kind of causality in the conventional sense, plus this cross lives, moral sense of it, or is it just a better way or a different way of describing that which we already kind of acknowledge?
Well, I think bringing in cross lives is one of the important aspects of Buddhist karma, that your karma stays with you in an important way through death and into a next life. And it does shape, according to early Buddhism at least, it does shape who you are in your next life.
So that's quite an addition. But also the sense, I guess, in which at least some Buddhists believe that it will determine what kind of fate you have in your next life. If I go around being really violent towards monks,
Mm-hmm,
something kind of innocent mostly in Buddhism. And if I go around kind of pushing monks under trains or generally being horrible to monks, I probably expect to wake up in hell when I'm reborn. And the conventional Buddhist thing, it won't turn out well for me. I won't just become a kind of mean person who no one trusts.
Right. But the word fate we have to be very careful with, because we can talk about a fate as a result, or we can talk about it as more of a deterministic quality. And I think Buddhism definitely wants to stray away from a deterministic quality in that. So you might wake up in hell, but because of free will, you might...
I've kind of chosen to be there, I guess.
Well,
through my actions.
Through your actions have resulted, brought that result to you. But you can also spontaneously manifest compassion and generosity and leave that hell very quickly.
I could.
You could, or you could stay there.
I suppose the last thing to say about karma really is that I suppose a lot of 19th century writing on Buddhism in the West, in both the UK and places like Germany and things that kind of were part of the European discovery of Buddhism, they saw karma initially as fatalistic. They made that kind of judgment about it that you're seeking that we avoid, and they saw karma absolutely as something like fate, and you can escape your karma. But I think more recently, in the 20th, particularly latter half of the 20th century, there's been a big concentration on the idea of freedom in Buddhism, in both a positive and negative sense. The freedom to do things, sure, but also about freedom from causal factors and things. I think the story of karma is better told when we link it, I think, to stories about freedom in Buddhism.
Yeah, I agree. And interestingly, that's something that scholars are still debating today, whether there is free will in Buddhism and to what extent that can be discussed. There are still some scholars who would say that it's deterministic.
Yeah, I think a kind of Humean compatibilist view of Buddhist accounts of free will, but that's perhaps a topic to get into another day. Thank you.